We need to have differences. We need uniqueness. We need people to add their own melody to this world. And unfortunately, there's so much noise in this world that we've forgotten to hear our own inner voice. And so the fest for me is when you're able to hear your voice and you're actually able to align yourself with your friend group, with your work, with what you eat, what you consume in general. You're so in alignment to yourself that life becomes a natural flow.
Welcome. I'm your host, Martijn Smeets, mental health trainer for entrepreneurs, and in this podcast, Redefine Success, Unscripted Stories, we'll dive into raw, unfiltered stories of people breaking the mold to inspire you to let go of the societal pressure and norm of success. And if you love what you hear, then drop a review and make sure to check out the Thrive Tribe, a community where personal and professional well-being comes together. Let's dive into it. Timothy, it's so awesome to have you here again. We met in Bansko, I think it was the end of June on a DigitalNomadFest, and still remember it was an evening in the bar. There was some football playing, and I just rocked up there, and yeah, I felt an instant connection because it was just fun, a good time. It wasn't all that serious, and then throughout the week we had some more conversations where I noticed it's not just the fun. There's also some depth to this guy, and that's something I really, really appreciated. And actually, like we vibed, the energy was there, but actually didn't know much about him. And just before this podcast, I asked him, like, what is it that you actually do professionally? And then he's telling me he comes out of the fashion industry, he used to have a jewelry, clothing business, like clothing brand of his own. Coming from Switzerland, grew up in Australia, now since 4 or 5 years working in the mental personal development space. I just hear, all the ingredients we need for a very, very beautiful podcast episode. So thank you for being here, Timothy.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, I think you summed it up really nicely. We met in Bansko, and despite not knowing each other in terms of, societal definitions of knowing each other, which is mostly actually surface level in terms of, what's your name, what you do, how long you've been a nomad, we kind of skipped that stage and just went deep. And with very few words, I think we knew very quickly that we're quite aligned. And there was a really beautiful openness between us, which I appreciated, and which it becomes quite rare these days. Yeah, when you requested me to jump on the podcast, I was very happy to have the opportunity and also to share some more quality time with you. It's also nice to talk with you more.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And getting people aligned in here, getting people, that you vibe with, that have a story to share. That's obviously the goal of all of this. But let's dive right into it, because just before this, like literally 3 minutes ago, you shared with me that you were working in the luxury industry. You just said to yourself you're an experience creator, and you had your own jewelry, clothing label, and now at this moment you're still in Bansko. You've been traveling for a long time, but you're in Bansko now. You're going to move back to, or not move, but travel to Switzerland, Cyprus soon. Obviously, like, we'll dive more into your journey to get where you are today, but from your point of view, from the perspective that you have today, what is your perspective of what success means to you? What does success mean to you?
Good question. And before I allow my head to jump in and give some sort of definition that I require, spontaneously, I like to say success to me would mean that I have the ability to live aligned to who I am and utilize this lifetime to sort of have the gift of expressing myself and experiencing what it means like to be myself in this world. So to me, success is the freedom to be myself. And that requires a certain amount of lifestyle. It requires a certain amount of mindset. It requires taking a lot of risks and saying yes to yourself and no to others. But it's not in alignment potentially with what success looks like to a lot of people and what society or teachers have told me what success is meant to look like. I reached that.
Feel free to
Sorry.
vision. Feel free to share the vision that has been, pushed upon your thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, because when I was young, I was very creative and artsy. And I remember a teacher telling me that, you don't earn any money with art. The only way to make money is by going to university and, taking a traditional sort of 9-to-5 job. of course, times have changed, and I was still influenced by that. And so I remember when I was younger, I started with modeling, and then I worked my way up in the fashion industry. So I worked first when I was 16, 17. I started working on the side at Esprit, French Connection, and then I worked at Bossini, and I worked my way up. In the end, I worked at Louis Vuitton, Rolex, and those kind of like luxury labels. For me, that wasn't enough. I knew that I wanted to make my own thing. I knew that I didn't want to be just laboring for something, but without meaning beyond it. So for me, money is very important, but money is a means to an end, not an end in itself. And since I didn't really know who I was or what I wanted to do, so I acquired money, but uh, it didn't really have much meaning behind it. I didn't know how to use it properly. And society or teachers told me that success is kind of associated with financial wealth. And I found that really not true when I was living in Indonesia. I had there first my clothing label, and then I expanded into jewelry. And I, yeah, realized that, wealth is one aspect of it. It gives you security, it gives you possibilities. Certainly means of freedom, because you have the freedom to choose what to do. At the same time, though, you can become very quickly a slave of your wealth. And well, what is the meaning that you're gonna give to this wealth, and how can you use it for? And if there's no bigger picture, I mean, what are you succeeding in exactly, right? So if it's just about accumulating money and power, well, what are you succeeding in, right? So it's a tool, but how are you going to use this money and power to actually represent who you are? And that gives, of course, begging the question of who am I, and how can I utilize my tools that I acquire in order to represent and create and craft this person or this identity who I am in this reality, and use my uniqueness to sort of add some spices to this cocktail that we are living in.
Yeah, I love that perspective of, well, money being a tool, being energy. There's many different words to put on that, but I love, looking at money being a tool to succeed. And then, because like you were talking about having a life aligned with you, but then what you said after is succeeding in being you, and that I think is such a beautiful way to put it. And then of course it opens up the question of who am I, and that goes very deep and is in well, an endless question that you can keep on asking yourself for the rest of your life, and will keep on changing over and over again. I would like we'll definitely dive more into that and into those aspects for a second, like in a minute. I would like you coming what for many people would be, the ultimate success for life, when you say, modeling, working for Louis Vuitton, Rolex, and then having your own jewelry brand, having your own clothing. Like, how did so now you're in that point of, I want to live a lifeline with me. What were like some pivotal moments, or what made you create that internal change of, this is not what I see as success anymore, and this is what success is to me now?
Yeah. So I think it's an accumulation of moments and experiences. You know, quickly close the window as it decided to be raining here in Bulgaria. Um, I would say I've never really easily just subscribed to the mainstream point of view of just, obedience and following the mainstream. So I've always questioned things. And when I started university studying commerce, I saw all those people doing a 9 to 5, and they, a lot of them seemed just lifeless. That scared me. I didn't want to be one of those people who would just are rotating on a hamster's wheel. I wanted to have purpose and meaning in my life. And in order for me to commit to something, I need to understand why I'm doing it. And working a job just to earn money so that I can pay taxes on it, and then finance the expensive lives that I need to live, because I need to live in a city so that I can also dress well and go to the job, didn't make sense to me. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, that I wanted to do my own thing. It was also the time period, I guess, where entrepreneurship was quite fancy and sexy. This was 8 years ago, 10 years ago, when, Richard Branson and all those big names, were kind of the heroes of the day. And then through modeling, I got connections with designers, and through the work I did, I knew that in the luxury menswear, there is there's a gap because a shirt never really fits somebody. Nobody is technically a standard size. And together with my marketing knowledge, I saw this gap and I want to do something. But after you accumulate stuff and you have, let's say, a black hole in your chest, and you try to buy stuff with your money, and it makes you feel good for a very short time, but it becomes a pointless cycle. And one moment for me was when I went to a nightclub in Indonesia and I saw a lot of street children at night. And the next couple of days, I was like, man, I'm spending money every day and when I go out anyway. So, and then my ego would be like, I cannot go out and give money to these kids because, this was like, I was very money and power focused because actually it came from a lack mindset, right? But anyhow, I decided to, instead of going out the next time, I'll just use the money that I would spend anyway to go to like a wholesale shop and buy, sanitary pads, food and stuff for street kids. And that made me happy. And I realized that I can use money to provide happiness and solutions to people. And that actually in turn makes me happy rather than just accumulating more wealth and all of that. And that kind of brought me towards a journey of personal development. I thought more about, mindset and all of that. However, the main pivotal moment would have been when I had the motorcycle accident in Indonesia, where I technically lost my life and came back to life. And one of those things was the question of, okay, so I should have died. I didn't die. Why? Well, I can't fail, right? So even if I become now a homeless person, it will still mean I'm still alive and I still get to play this game called life. So technically there is no failure left. So I really need to live my life now and take chances and make sure that I'm happy and fulfilled because the world doesn't need more clothing and more jewelry. What would actually bring me fulfillment? And that's when I started realizing that the thoughts I had in my head, the solutions, the ideas were not my own. This was, my parents talking or my teachers talking or fear of my friends. That took me on a long journey of self-acceptance, self-awareness, self-love, just really a connection of self. And that's, I think, where success again comes in. Like if you have financial or success of power, actually your locus of control is external, right? So you depend on somebody else to give you money or to give you power so that you can feel empowered. But when success becomes a way of living your life in alignment and it becomes something that is beyond the identity, the ego self, the physical reality, it becomes a way of looking at life and experiencing life, then every day, every moment is success and you can celebrate everything. And it's not a if then, like if I achieved X, then I will be happy. But it's more, I am successful because I am me. And you know how hard it is to be yourself in this society where you have social media, where you have politicians, you have teachers, you have parents, you have a lot of trauma that is getting passed on from generation to generation. And just to be yourself, man, like you are adding so much to society already because you're unique, right? Like everybody is unique and that's so special. And I like to look at life as this universe, right? It's called one song in Latin, universe. But if everybody starts playing the violin, it doesn't sound very good. So we need to have differences. We need uniqueness. We need people to add their own melody to this world. And unfortunately, there's so much noise in this world that we've forgotten to hear our own inner voice. And so the best for me is when you're able to hear your voice and you're actually able to align yourself with your friend group, with your work, with what you eat, what you consume in general. You're so in alignment to yourself that life becomes a natural flow. And how much money do you need? I don't know. How much do you truly need to be successful is very little. It's not that much. There's some basic stuff like survival, you can still succeed in life, but be homeless, for example. You can still learn a lot from a tree. You can, success is same thing with anything language wise. I think it's something that humans have created a word, a definition, and they attributed to it a certain definition that is beneficial to society. Um, it's a similar thing. And, some people might not like that, but I think with religion, right? Somebody has created a concept, a system, and other people are obliging by it because it's easier to follow somebody else's system than to create your own system.
Definitely.
However, I would argue that it's very much recommended for everyone who's listening to this to define for themselves what is success and create their own system.
And
Fine.
that's, of course, what this podcast is all about, to inspire people to create their own way of success. Because, you made a few very valuable points that I really feel like I need to, or I want to, put an exclamation mark around of, you heard the voices of your mom, your dad, your teachers, the fear of your friends. Because anyone who's listening this and or listening to this and has feels that pressure of being successful, asking yourself that question of who's actually talking in my mind can be so powerful. Why? Where is this coming from? And like, is this truly me? Is this true? Is that truly what you want? Or is that you wanting that to make your parents happy or to make your teachers
Mhm.
proud or to, for whatever reason? And really asking yourself that question is a very, very powerful thing. And, coming back to what you said before, because like you keep on saying, what is success for me? Living aligned with me. I like with me, but like you are like the question you raised in the beginning, who are you? It's such a powerful question because you said it yourself. What I think first, I want to say like amazing, and like congratulations. I'm happy that you are still part of this world, and
Absolutely.
that you use that experience to be such a transformational experience, and to now do the work that you do and be here in this podcast. Um, you've been creating positive change in people's minds in their lives, but like you mentioned, you had to do lots of work on yourself as well. You had to figure out on who you are. What were the biggest challenges that you faced when it came to that mental health journey that you're still on, obviously, because it's never really done. Like, what were the main challenges, and what were the most powerful tools that you found in your journey?
As you begin to pay more attention to yourself, to gain more awareness, at the beginning, I felt that it was rather, it's not easy, okay? But at the beginning, you can spot the mask, the stories you tell yourself far easier because they're on the surface level. These are like lies you have told yourself you started believing, things other people have said to you that you started believing, and you begin unraveling those. The danger then becomes that you think you've now reached a plateau and that you have achieved something. And that's it, right? You don't grow anymore, and you're now an enlightened person, whatever. Um, I found the most difficult actually to love myself, like to genuinely love myself, and realizing that in order to truly love myself, I have to realize that selfish does not equals, it's not the same as self-love, right? So I tend to always put people ahead of me. The opinions of others are really important to me, even though I realize that other people cannot technically know what's right.
So we lost Timothy for a minute due to the beautiful internet in Bulgaria, but that's part of interviewing digital nomads from all places in the world. So let's just share that and be authentic about it. But we were talking about who you are, and you know Timothy also shared that we have to peel down our layers, and like the part that I still wanted to share about that, because it's that house breaking down. No, it's not going to be comfortable figuring all of this out, because you literally going to have to knock your house down. You're going to have to let go of so many things that you identify with, that you really see as you and as yours. So I'm like peeling those layers off and figuring out who you are can be can really put you in a place of uncertainty as well, and like lots of unknown, but that is part of the process of coming closer to who you really are.
Mhm. I'm currently mentoring a young lady, and she is going through this exactly that. So there's been a lot of pressure from her family that she will do her medical studies and become a doctor, but then she doesn't actually want to be a doctor, and she finally had the courage to, yeah, make a decision and pursue herself. And it's very scary. It's a lot because you are going against technically what your parents have programmed you to do. Because in her case, they wanted her to live their life that they wanted to live. And so by you choosing yourself, you are going to make it uncomfortable for others as well because they came to see you in a certain light. But true acts of loving kindness are telling somebody who is not right for you that they're not right for you, and telling somebody who is right for you that they are right for you. It doesn't mean adjusting ourselves to please everyone. That's not loving. That is self-deprivating. And so by you being yourself, you give permission to those people who actually want to see you, who want to feel you, who want to thrive with you, to be in your life. At the same time, you also give permission to those people who don't truly benefit from having you in their life to actually exit and move on. And so it takes courage to be yourself. It takes a lot of vulnerability. But we know from Brené Brown that vulnerability is actually courage. I would like to also say that fear, the feeling of fear is very similar, if you look at it anatomically, as the feeling of excitement. And it's simply a reprogramming. Either you think that you're scared of some unknown event, because fear can be said as false evidence appearing real, right? It's a projection of the future based on the past in the present moment. Totally lunatic to pretend that we can know what the future will bring. At the same time, maybe we can just rebrand it as I'm excited for the future because the future is mine. I am creating the future based on my decisions in the now. And so that's why I have to know who I am so that in the now I can make the decisions that will create the future that represent who I am. And yeah, that's what you said.
It's that you bring Brené Brown and like this specific topic and fear and excitement. I absolutely love it because I dove really deep into fear because I found it so interesting. I see it as being one of, if not the biggest limitation of mankind. So like shifting our perspectives on it can be so life changing, so transformative. And I always say fear and excitement is practically the same emotion. The only real difference is with fear, you're focusing on the worst possible outcome, but excitement, you're focusing on the best possible outcome. But internally, fear and excitement actually feel the same. Like if you really like try and think about it, in a moment where you felt excitement, a moment where you feel fear, you're both going to feel it in a very similar way in your body. The only
Yeah,
difference is what you're focusing on mentally, what is going to happen after that experience that or you fear for or excited about.
100%.
Yeah.
So actually you are in control. And yeah, I like the main thing with the lady that I'm mentoring right now is just to kind of let go and let God, kind of. It doesn't mean that you have to be religious and all, but it's just, I think it was John Lennon who said, life is what happens while people are busy making plans. And I like that so much because how can we possibly know the outcome of tomorrow? Everything is right now. And in every moment of now, I am deciding who I am creating and who I am representing to the outside world. And so in every action that we take, we cause reactions in how people see us, in how the world engages with us, how we think about ourselves. And our mind is our greatest servant, I think, the ego. I think a lot of people have this kind of dissociation with it. And especially in this like new age spiritual community, there's a lot of hate towards ego. I think we just have been abusing our ego. And our ego has been trying to help keep us alive. And it's such an existential fear that we have related to money and identity that the ego has created an identity for us. And it has created a way of living our lives. But it's not the role. I see it as the body is the vehicle. The ego is of this reality, of this physical plane. So it knows how to drive the car, but it has no idea where it's going. And that's where we need to have this body, mind, spirit connection because the spirit or soul or higher self or whatever you want to call it, but that part of yourself is where the GPS is at. Like that thing knows where you are meant to be going. And it's not in terms of a specific destination or a specific job or whatever, but it's a direction. It's a natural flow, a progression. Our mind thinks of a specific example, but its energy is always volatile and changing. So it's just, no, I'm a people person. Okay. So I should then naturally follow this flow and take my body with my ego and go into situations where I can meet people. Or, we can give tons of examples. But I think this is really important coherence between body, mind, and spirit so that you can utilize each of those in the right way. And then life becomes much simpler. Life is very simple, but it's extremely complicated to understand that. I think that's the dichotomy. It's extremely simple once you live life according to your own terms. but it's extremely challenging to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, life is, well, someone once said it to me and I'll never forget it. Life is one big cosmic joke. Yeah. We shouldn't take everything so freaking seriously. And when you say life is simple, that really, that part of me is triggered of, it is really simple, because the only thing we really have to do is enjoy every moment. And
Mm-hmm.
then, if we truly focus on enjoying the moment, not in pleasing that person or doing this or don't, I would say that if I don't think there's any person who would argue that if you enjoy every moment, that you have a successful life. Because if there's a homeless person that truly enjoys every moment, is he done? And would you then really say he's unsuccessful? Like, maybe in your vision of success, but for him, would he really be unsuccessful? I don't know. Yeah, we'd have to ask
Yeah,
him to be sure, but yeah.
that's. I think that you're hitting a really good point about enjoy, because even if you're suffering, like, okay, that may be a bit of a harsh example. You should never really enjoy suffering. I mean, suffering is part of life, but as you're going through a moment of suffering, you can still enjoy it, knowing that this will make you stronger, or knowing that this is still part of life. And without suffering, you wouldn't know how good it feels when you are just able to relax and enjoy the moment. So everything can technically be transition, and that's really part of the positive mindset program. At the same time, I don't think it's healthy to pretend everything is enjoyable, but to see joy in each moment, because it's part of the life experience, the ups and downs of the boat ride on the sea. What I noticed when I was in Indonesia, I lived there. There were a lot of people at the beginning when I started going there who still worked the rice fields and inherited land from their parents. And as Westerners started living there more and flashed their nice phones and cars, and they followed them on Instagram, and not realizing that potentially half of the stuff people posted was fake, and rented private jets instead of real ones. A lot of Indonesian friends of mine would sell their land and buy nice phones, and that destroyed them, right? Because it makes them happy for 2 weeks when they can still show off, but in 6 months, this phone is outdated and it actually has not much resale value like a rice paddy field does have. And the reason why they changed is because the definition of success changed. So Western capitalist consumerists came and collided with their culture of long-term sustainable living, and that really has caused a lot of issues. So as you mentioned, right, like the homeless guy might be super successful in our eyes because he sees each moment as a blessing and each day. But to a Wall Street banker who unfortunately is very much victim of his own conditioning, yeah, you probably would not be able to see that. But I think that's just because so many layers and layers, right? So
There it comes down to uncovering those layers, right? But like, I
yeah.
love to emphasize on the point that you made when it comes to experiencing life, and that sadness, anger, every emotion is part of it, because we experience life through our senses and through our emotions, right? So if we would neglect an emotion, we are neglecting a part of experience of life. And
Mhm.
I think fear is also part of that. And like, when we then
Mhm.
look at this journey of success, where and people want to break out of the mold, create their own way of success, I think fear and fear of judgment is a really big part of that. Because when like for yourself potentially as well, you were working for these really really big brands, you had your own clothing and jewelry brand. So I can imagine you had a big community in that field as well, who really look up to these big brands as being the most successful thing. But then stepping out of that and like really swimming against the stream, really, and saying, what all of you guys are doing, what I've been doing, is actually not that important. It's actually not that cool. It's actually not what I want. You're gonna get some feedback, some negative feedback. People are gonna judge you, or gonna do something that they're not going to understand. And everyone who wants to break out of that fold has to go through that, like, as hard as it may be. That's just how it is. How do you deal with that, with stepping out of that world and into that new world?
So I found that what allowed me to experiment was traveling. And I learned that because when I was 14, my family moved from Switzerland to Australia. And in Switzerland, I had maybe a bit of a reputation in the school system, and maybe I wasn't the best student, and I wasn't, but coming to Australia, nobody knew me. And I could totally invent who I wanted to be. And I realized that when I traveled, I was outside of my usual friend group. And when I was with the same friend group in the same environment, it's extremely difficult to be yourself because people see you in a certain way and you kind of don't want to step on anybody's toes. When you're traveling, who knows? And so you can try just different aspects of yourself and you can open yourself more up with much less risk than if you do it in your hometown. So that's one thing I did. The other important thing that I needed to learn exactly that if I say yes to others all the time, I'm saying no to myself. And by saying no to others, I actually say yes to myself. And to truly say what I mean and really mean what I say, that was difficult. Also, do remember the fear of being rejected, especially after I had this near death experience where I got a lot of esoteric or spiritual knowledge, you could say, through that experience. And I was really afraid that people would judge that. What I realized is the more I accepted myself, people didn't judge me, right? I never faced once where anybody was as critical, rude, dismissive of me as how I was dismissive of myself. I believe that we will be our own greatest enemies, but it's not really being an enemy. I think it's just providing the nourishment and laying the foundation of being ostracized. You will be criticized. You will be analyzed. People will assume stuff about you. And learning to deal with that is part of it. And that's exactly with this fear. Like, I don't know, like, isn't the part of the fun is jumping over the fear? Like, isn't that why we do bungee jumping? Is we feel fear and then we just do it? Public speaking, I do public speaking and I'm scared every time, but it's not a fear of public speaking. It's this excitement, right? So I can, but that's the reward. The reward of us being ourselves is waiting at the other side of jumping over this fear, this false evidence appearing real, this blockage, this. But at the same time, the challenge is then not in judging fear, and that's what often happens. Is like, oh, fear is bad. No, but fear is really important tool. Keeps it alive, and there's healthy fear, and then there's mental chronic fear. I think I'm blabbering on right a bit, but
I'm loving it, man.
fear
Not
is
at all.
good. Come over your fear, and yes, people will give you. Well, people will challenge you, right? And I think that's the beautiful thing. Like, if somebody is asking you questions, it triggers you, or you don't have an answer, it's a blessing because you now know what you need to work on.
And I think the beautiful thing I take out of all of this, what, again, I would love to emphasize for all the listeners, all the watchers, is, you say, jump over that fear because nobody is going to criticize yourself as much as you do. But then linking it to what we said before about that fear, just a feeling of fear and excitement. Imagine you are standing at that point, where you want to jump and you want to, step out of the fold and create your own way of your successful life. I lost some people when I did that, and many people
Mhm.
did, but that's okay. But what we are focusing on, think about it. What I said before, with fear, you're focusing on the worst possible outcome. You're focusing, oh, I might lose this person, I might lose that person. But when you look at the other side of the coin, there is so much excitement because the people that are going to stay close to you, they get an opportunity to get to know the real you. They get an opportunity to experience real you and get connected with you even more, create a deeper connection. You can show up in different places in the world and, like you said, reinvent yourself, meet people that accept, love, and see and hear you for who you are instead of you trying to fit in with who you are supposed to be according to them. So instead of fearing losing them, get excited about building with others.
Yes, 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 100%. Yeah. that's from a personal experience. Like the more I became myself, the easier it became that I attract the right tribe in my life. Like when I would travel, I will attract the right people because I am emitting my own frequency. And as long as I was emitting somebody else's frequency, but I changed schools many times. So schools is like survival of the fittest. Like you need to make friends ASAP. And so I became great at being a chameleon and making my way and becoming very well connected with freaking. But that means that as I moved schools, I didn't like unmask myself, became myself, went to a new school, and then put another mask on. No, I simply put mask over mask over mask. And with time, I kept attracting the same people in my life. And that was because I was behaving like that way. The moment I jumped over my fear of losing my existing circle of friends, I gained a new circle of friends, which was way more aligned to who I am. So exactly as you say, either you are in fear and you focus on who you're going to lose, or you are on excitement and you focus on who you're going to win. And there is a lot of people out there.
Yes. Yeah, man. So if part of for the listeners out there, if part of you of feeling unsuccessful might feel like not having the right tribe, making that jump might even be more important because yes, you might lose that one person that you have a little bit of a connection with. Like Timothy says as well, like that is really aligned with my personal experience. You gain so many more than you lose, and so many like, you create so many more deep connections. So,
Yes.
go out there and do it, guys.
Yes. And there's going to be people who understand you and people who way open up, who want to help you, right? The more you are afraid of others, you will generate in your mind confirmation of that fear. And I am so grateful because I've met people who really helped me, and now I'm in a position where I can help others. And I think humans by default are very cooperative. And even the worst of humanity, a war, for example, right, only functions because people cooperate together.
Yeah.
And we only manage to overcome tyrants because we work together. And I think humans are deeply cooperative. And to make a mindset shift of it's me versus the world, more like, okay, let me connect and find my tribe so that we can collaborate and cooperate and build something together. It's not you versus the world. Everybody is going through a similar thing. And yeah, I think living your life is the greatest gift. And switching success as destination, like when I have this much money or when I have a wife and kids or the right husband and whatever, to switching it to it's not the destination, it's the journey to the destination. It's like happiness, right? Happiness is not the place that you reach, it's the way of living life. And that's what I see with success, because when you will meet a new tribe and you will meet your friends and you will open up and you're not the end product. You are constantly evolving being, and your definition of success will always be adjusting. The only reason why I say success is, for me, being myself and being aligned is because that is something that will never change. Yes, my environment, my circumstances, my age, my body, my appearance changes, but the essence of me, the spark that gives me life, the awareness behind the mask and awareness behind the identity, that will not change. And as long as I'm living my physical reality in alignment with my inner self, I'm succeeding in life. And that is not going to change, even though everything around me is changing. And that's why I choose a definition of success, which is constant, but it's based on change. So I think that's really an important point, not to think that you are unsuccessful until you're successful. I think it's a mindset shift of I am successful. And as a successful person, I am creating X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, very quick question first. Are you still working in the fashion industry or have you let that go completely?
I let it go completely. Yeah, look, I love aesthetics. I love clothing. I don't work it anymore. I just enjoy it for myself now. I get my own clothing done and I have jewelry. But how am I going to compete with someone who wakes up in the morning and they're dreaming about design? Yeah. And they are waking up and they're starting sketches and they're dreaming about the catalog and all. How am I going to compete with that person when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, shoot, I still need to make inventory. I need to make new designs. I want to I have all these things in my head for the future. I'm not enjoying the present moment. Like I am selling and designing and creating clothing and jewelry so that I have money and I can have a lifestyle, which then potentially might make me happy and make me feel successful in the eyes of others. So that then my ego can be boosted and look like it's so messed up. And how it's like, that's why for you to succeed, the easiest thing to do is for you to be you, because then you're not competing with anyone. Like there is only you. So there is no competition, and that's why you are going to be perfect by default, because there is nobody else to compare yourself to. You are a complete being in yourself, and yeah, that's the easiest way to be successful, is to be yourself.
But this again is something to really point out of when you wake up in the morning and you're dreading what you have to do that day, it's probably something that is not aligned with you. Uh,
Yeah,
Like for me, starting with this podcast, because I've also been in the entrepreneurial world for a while. I've pivoted many, many times. And, I had a podcast with my ex partner, but, we stopped working together, stopped the podcast. I always knew I wanted to do it, but didn't find the right theme yet. But to be honest, I'm not even sure if I've ever shared this. But anyway, like I used to have a core value of success, and I actually took that out of there because I was like, no, but then the world is going to look at me like, I'm money focused. And now, like, hearing myself think at some point, I was like, fuck this shit. That's ridiculous. Like, I want to be successful, but success doesn't have to be money. Like, and this is slowly how the idea of this theme for the podcast came out. But now every time if I have a podcast episode lined up, I wake up and I'm so excited to have these kind of conversations. And also, like, I'm not a video editor, or like it's when I look at the content I was making before, I never enjoyed making any of, like, really, with passion. Now I'm getting behind my laptop. I'm like, yes, okay, let's do this. Some new good stuff to bring out. And
right.
having those emotions is a very good indication whether or not you're living a life aligned with you, I would say.
I feel like we have, like I said, another set of sensors, perception, and that's our intuition. It's the same like when you walk into a clothing store, for example. Let's say that I work with Louis Vitton, and I curate experiences now, like so for 5-star resorts, for festivals, no, and I utilize human design and human experience, like when you enter a place, like sound, music, all these different senses, so the different ways our body interact. But the really important thing is actually the energy of the place, right? And how the employees in the place are feeling, because customers can feel like whether there's tension between the employees, whether they're open, welcoming. And I think typically what you're saying is that it's already successful when you are creating something that you wake up to and you're excited about. Like what a small thing, but we should definitely celebrate that, because it took all these years where you didn't do it to realize what you don't want to do. And then you took the plunge, you jumped over the fear, you started, and now you're rolling, and you're constantly reiterating and improving and all. But that's definitely success. And success is happening as you are moving. Mm. And that goes back to the point of success is not a destination, but success is a journey. And in every moment, you can choose to be yourself. Mm. Isn't that a miracle? We are able to be creators. Like we're the only species on Earth that is able to create itself. Like it's a big responsibility, but the responsibility means the ability to respond. Like we have the ability to respond to our circumstances. And yet most people choose to respond from a set of programming that they have acquired over the years. And I think what we are saying is respond from your own programming, like decide how you want to respond. You're a free agent, and like truly living and loving your life. Oh, like you are going to energize people just being there. Like you don't even have to do it. Just your energy is going to influence everyone. So
And
it's good.
and like we talk about it now as if it's easy, because for us now it's more normalized. But just as Timothy explained, like he went through that journey. I also really went through that journey. And if you're listening and you think, oh, this looks easy to them, or it's easy for them to say this, when no, we went through that journey. And Timothy explained it, like, about it. He did all the meditation. He spent time with himself. We didn't go there, but probably invested a lot in himself as well, in his mental well-being, personal well-being. He's still constantly working on himself, figuring out who he is. And so it took us time and energy, and going through difficult and uncomfortable emotions and situations to get to where we are today. But because the more you go through uncomfortable moments, the more you take that leap of faith, the more often you step over that fear, the easier it is going to become the next time. But you have the power to make that decision today. And everyone can wait for the perfect moment, or until this person advises me to do so, or whatever reason you are waiting for. I can't remember who said this, but there's the best moment to start was yesterday. The second best is today. And like, if you want to do something different with your life, start today. Start figuring out yourself, because what you have to do different is not going to fall into your lap.
Yeah. Yeah. And insanity is repeating the same things and expecting different results, right? Albert Einstein.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then, yeah, just to confirm that, like, it's a long journey. It is not easy. Like, I had somebody telling me like, oh yeah, then your death experience, and after that you kind of were granted different point of view on life, and after that it was easy. It's like, whoa, no, 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 like, just because maybe your spirit leaves your body, like when you come back, you're still in your body, like you still have the programming in your head, you're still living in this reality. Yeah. Really, like, for those people who are potentially identifying like as spiritual people, there's a huge risk of then just attaching from your like ego in terms of I need stuff to be happy, to switching to like, oh no, I'm a spiritual person, I need nothing to be happy, and I'm just going to meditate all day. These are both this is a typical switch in reverse. And then your ego is like, oh, it doesn't like me. Okay, I'm just gonna become like a spiritual ego. I'm just gonna, look at the sheep, look at the non-believers. And I think that this is also beautiful. Right. So I think life is happening to you and not against you, and everything is part of your journey. And when you are starting to get to know yourself, what I really recommend is people not to be in their head too much, not to think, who am I, and so on, because your mind, its duty is to obligate, like to listen to your commands, right? And if you ask your mind, who am I, your mind is going to produce results, whether they're accurate or not. And I think it's much more a matter of rebuilding a relationship to your inner self, like to your heart or to your inner child, whatever you want to call it, because you've kind of been neglecting yourself for the last couple of years growing up and adapting to society. So we've all done that. And yeah, it's going to take some relationship, and start with simply treating yourself nice. Like, what do you actually enjoy doing? Like, with who do you hang out that makes you feel elevated, and with whom do you hang out that makes you feel depressed? Like, it's basic things like that. It's basically market research. You have to get to know yourself, and yeah, not get lost in labels again. Not like, I am a 30-year-old spiritual man who was born in Switzerland and now I live in Australia and now I'm this. It's all not true. Like, everything that comes after I am is an identification label. Like, actually, all that we are is just awareness. And then this awareness is contained within this body. And so, I'm saying that I'm a male and I was born in this particular geographic location, which is called Switzerland in this day and age. But these are all the things that I am. And that's the key, I think, is to understand who am I truly, but then not to get lost in that spiritual realm, but to understand, okay, I chose to be on this physical plane. So how am I going to utilize this physical plane that we live on to actually express and experience who I am spiritually? And I think that's when you hit the jackpot. And then you can create solutions in this reality that are actually of spiritual nature, but it still serves the purpose of us being alive here and now. So that's where it goes back to being yourself.
And the topics that Timothy is talking about here, they are amazing. They definitely, for some people, will sound some woohoo.
Yeah.
Me, definitely did in the past as well. Now I'm so backing you up in everything that you say. And just want to give this to people, one book that really helped me to understand it, because it explains these spiritual woo woo topics in a very easy, down to earth way, and it's not even a thick book. It's Untethered Soul, if I remember right, by Michael Singer. I think it's like a thin book, explains it really well. So if this interests you, go and check that out. But two more questions for you, Timothy, because you talked about living in the now, enjoying this moment. But I know that you also have a certain vision, or I can imagine you also have a certain vision for yourself, like a direction that you're working towards. I like what is something that you are really looking to create in this lifestyle? Are there specific things that you're working towards?
So I'm working towards building a cohabitation place. To explain that, my plan is to buy a large piece of land, and probably in Bulgaria or somewhere else, but it seems like it's going to be Bulgaria, and build there a retreat space, farm to table restaurant, craft workshops, have a small farm, have my own little forest, solar panels, etc. But then also have like a co-living space, and rather than what exists already, where it's you rent a little a room or an apartment in a larger building, it will be little houses, like small mini houses. They can live long term, and the idea is to create some sort of almost like a village feeling where people can truly sense belonging and meaning, and utilize their crafts and skills to exchange with each other, and also have possibility to pursue themselves by having a kindergarten, for example, and a school that is more aligned. And then you don't need every parent to look after all the kids, but you can exchange. And I think that is something I'm definitely working towards, because I really care about my nutrition. So I want to have my own farm to table restaurant, because I'm solving my own need. I want to have a sense of belonging and meaning with my tribe, which is why I am building a retreat center and co-living space. I am really caring about nature and connection. So that's why I am choosing to build it in the land and not too close to a city. So really, I'm solving my own problems. And I think that is what I'm just pursuing. So I'm creating solutions to what I need or needed. And I don't really have a plan that is fixed, but I know this GPS, right? Like this direction. So my body, I'm making sure I'm putting the right fuel in my body. I'm exercising my body like I would a car. I am making sure my mental health is okay. Like I'm sleeping enough. I'm not consuming any intoxicants. And then I just need to be actually open to receive. Like it's not so much me trying to visualize the future. It's more, well, who am I in the moment? What skills do I have? And what is aligned? Like what opportunities are presenting themselves to me? And I found that when you look back in retrospective, all the skills I've acquired by working for luxury industry, we're studying marketing, having our own business, working in the fashion industry, um, looking at the coaching, making my own, this all accumulates to what I'm offering now, because I'm offering customer service experience trainings for 5-star resorts. I am mentoring people who are younger than me, because I would have loved to have somebody like myself who is able to sort of help guide me, not to give me solutions, not to solve my problems, but rather to be there when I am facing problems and issues, so that I have somebody to bounce ideas off. And so I'm very flexible with my future, but I'm very much aligned to who I am. So I know that my future will inevitably be something that represents who I am. And that goes back to the definition of success.
And I love it. It's definitely a very similar direction of where I want to go. And I would love to create multiple places of these around the world, but not I have to create them, but have multiple places in the world where I can host things or I can stay. So I love to hear you say that. And if there's anything ever any solid plans there, I would love to be part of it and help you there. So just that you know that. Actually,
Thank you.
I forgot one question actually. So two very short questions still. In two sentences, your textbook definition of success, and not for you, but for society. What is the textbook definition of success?
Living and loving your life. And maybe I'll unpack that. So live, love, life, right? In order to truly, I feel, live a life that is worth living and loving, it requires for you to live and love your life. Living means you need to be active player, right? So you cannot be passive. Like you actually have to engage with life. Loving, it means you have to be open and vulnerable and be yourself. So, and your life means, well, you. So it's about recognizing that we all live a unique life. And whilst we are alive, we need to live our life and actually love it. Like the point is to love our life and to truly live it. So not to, flow through life and let others guide you or be happy with mediocrity or unfulfillment or be in an unhappy relationship. No, you need to live and love your life. And if you truly live and love your life, like that is success to me.
I love how you put it, and it's something I haven't heard yet. So I appreciate that, Chairman.
I don't think it will ever make it into a dictionary. It's way too extreme.
Abstract is good. Um, the last thing, the links will be shared in the description below. But anyway, tell where people can find you. If you have, I don't know, if you have a certain course coming up, or anything that you want to share that you have coming up, let the listeners know.
So the most reachable for now is still my Instagram, which is Timothy Burkey. So my name's so TimothyBuerki. I just gave a really nice little mini retreat in the Bulgarian mountains, and the next weeks I'm going to be traveling between Cyprus and Switzerland. I'll be partaking at the Swiss Nomad Fest, and I'm also looking at potentially hosting a workshop there. I am still right now keeping my offerings quite private because I have already some people I'm mentoring, and I am now working for a local 5-star resort here in providing them with coaching and consultancy. I am though in the works of creating a proper nice website and then also offering online courses and then provide more information on in-person, offline retreats and workshops. Because I think that although online gives you much more reach, the connection that you can create offline is just unmatched. So if we keep the eyes open, um, yeah, this is just now the beginning of a big journey for me as well, because it's I've been on this now for almost a decade that I've been myself and pursuing being myself. But as you mentioned, it's an endless journey, and not in February this year, I decided to separate from my long term partner, and this for me has been so liberating. This is like it was a scary moment and all, and a very sad moment and all. It goes back to what I said earlier. Now is the time we have, and success is the other side of jumping over fear. And I just turned 30. This is my third decade. From 0 to 10, you are a victim of your parents and surroundings. From 10 to 20, you are a product of your friends groups, your studies. From 20 to 30, you try to figure out who you are. But then when you're 30 to 40, now it's time to be who you are. Like now it's time to build and to express. And so I've now set myself up here in Bulgaria with a wonderful base, with wonderful connections. I have a great team now on my side. And so we're building websites, and I'm going to start working on ebook and retreats and workshops and so on. So there's a lot in the pipeline. Yet I just focus on now, right? So people listening, yes, there's a lot in the pipeline, but don't focus on those things. They will come by themselves as long as you choose in the now to take action which will take you there, right? So don't get overwhelmed by all these big things and simply focus on the next thing which is happening now.
Absolutely love this conversation, Timothy. I appreciate you. It's been very insightful, and I hope that all the listeners found this very valuable. If there's something that you found super valuable, send me a Timothy message on Instagram. Maybe even share it in your stories. And thank you for listening all the way through to the end, guys.